Today, I'm speaking to Matt and Yana from CoastFI Couple, and we're going to answer your questions. I reached out to the Fi-Minded community and asked for questions specifically about relationships, kids, and CoastFI, and I got 3 awesome questions back. So in today's episode, we're going to do our best to answer those questions. And if you have a question for me that you would like me to answer in future episodes, email me at justin@fiminded.com. I hope you enjoy my conversation with the powerhouse CoastFI couple, Matt and Yana. Matt and Yana, you guys are the perfect people to have this conversation with, hosting CoastFI Couple, going through a lot of probably similar instances in your own personal plan. So I'm really excited to unpack some of these questions with you and try to give a semblance of guidance, or at least some knowledge.
Yeah, love the idea of kind of polling the audience. I think that's genius. Yeah. We get guests in the show now and again, but having like a full open Q&A is awesome.
Well, let's start. I'm going to ask the very first community question, and that's from my friend Jake. And Jake asked, before reaching CoastFI, everything felt like a sprint. Save more, earn more, optimize everything. Once I hit that point and my future retirement has been funded, I haven't been able to shift my mindset and have my present self indulge more. Is this normal? How do I get comfortable spending money versus earmarking it for savings and investing in the future? And Matt, I'm probably going to start with you on this one because I'm guessing this one probably hits a little close to home. Yeah. You and I feel like we're from similar DNA in terms of frugalites pretty much all of our life.
Yeah.
Was there a moment, or I guess maybe today in current moment, do you feel comfortable spending money on things that would just bring you joy and satisfaction?
Much more. Yeah, this has been an awakening process for me, because once we hit CoastFI, it's taken me about a year to loosen up the purse strings a little bit and start to enjoy that. I think you alluded to it. I was the guy that was going around picking up pennies on the sidewalk, and I didn't want to go out and do nice, lavish, dinners. I would plan them, and then that'd be like, okay, that's it for the year. That's all I'm going to do. But I think it was a gradual shift, and I attribute that shift to Yana when I started dating her, because I was very set in my ways. Like, I had a very strict goal, and I was going to meet that goal, and I was going full fire approach. But it wasn't until kind of slowing down and stopping to smell the roses, a conversation that we had, where I was realizing that my life could be so much more enjoyable, and we're still going to get the end result of being Fi down the road. So why not slow down, enjoy the time, date, go on trips with the kids, that kind of thing. And it was hard. We just had a conversation about it yesterday, actually, because we've been doing so much the past couple months that we haven't really prioritized the date night in a while. And I think, we've found different ways of making that easier. I think one is just talking about it, like understanding what your spouse, if you have a spouse, that what they want. And so you can try and like add that in. Honestly, a schedule kind of really helps. Like for me, I like to put it on the calendar. Otherwise, I'm going to forget about it, because I'm doing okay. Like, I don't need to go and buy something. It doesn't happen on a whim for me. I want to plan for it. So a trip is really a good way to do that. And I think, you're tapping my leg. You have something to say?
So I will say that you totally called it out, that you said frugalite. I'd never heard that term before.
Frugalite.
I love that.
And there are certain things that I heard from him, like putting his car into neutral, going downhill to save on some gas. I'm like, oh my gosh.
He is still very much so. He will second guess certain expenses when it's specifically just his own indulgence. For his birthday or for our anniversary or something, I have to keep a list of things. He's like, oh, I need this thing, or I kind of want to get this thing. He will not get it for himself. He still does struggle with that a little bit. I will say that I think that you've gotten better in the last maybe 6 months to a year, but it's been a little bit of a journey. You get so set in your ways, and you get so used to the way that you feel and think about money and your relationship with money and your relationship with yourself, that it takes time to deconstruct some of the rules that we put on ourselves and recognize that there's other ways, and maybe healthier ways, to go about living your life. It's still a little bit, we're still on the journey of getting him to a place where he feels more comfortable indulging. We have it. He can do it. He doesn't have to feel guilty. But I will say it's way better than it was a year ago.
I think too, what's helped is a lot of the podcasters or bloggers that I've read over the years, once they've hit that 5 marker, they always say the same thing. Like, I wish that I started doing this earlier, or created the life that I wanted before I got to this point, because it's easy to establish a pattern or a habit of not spending. At least for me, it was. And then you look up now 10 years later, and it's almost like a problem. I should be investing more in classes or things that I want to do to build myself up. I think that that's helped, listening to their take on it and us doing the numbers and just talking to other guests and learning from the FI community that, hey, it's okay. Honestly, it is okay to buy something,
to enjoy
to enjoy
yourself,
something. Yeah.
your
Yeah.
life.
Enjoy your life. Yeah. And I'll still
Yeah.
I still find a deal, I still won't buy something when it first comes out. I'll wait, a couple months or a year or something, but then I'll get it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But one other thing too that's really helped us is we've created kind of like slush funds for certain things, right? So date nights is one of them, family entertainment is another, travel is another, just so that way every month, as we're putting money into these buckets, we can glance at them and say, oh, hey, great, now I know that we've got a couple $100 in here. I can go out to eat and pick a nice lavish place and have it not be something that's guilty, or I can go down the street and buy something and have it not be a problem. And so that's really taken the stress out of it for me, because I've already pre-thought it and planned it. And so the guilt is gone.
Yeah.
And that's really nice. So I recommend doing that.
It's so funny that it's almost like the FI community. To answer Jake's question first, he said, is this normal? I'm guessing all three of us agree 100%.
Totally normal, Jake. You're not weird.
We talk about this all the time. And I think transitioning out of the hardcore save, invest, optimize stage and into a softer stage, CoastFI maybe being one of those, or definitely post-FI, and allowing yourself to start indulging or enjoying all of the fruits of your labor that you built over the last decade or so. It's a hard thing to do. Like, you don't just do the same thing day after day, week after week, year after year, and then expect whenever you hit some certain milestone that all of a sudden your mindset is going to be able to completely 180.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we struggle with that a lot. And FI is interesting because sometimes it's not always a certain number. We don't just hit our FI number and then all of a sudden we're like, cool, all these things that we said we're going to do, now we can do them.
It's a moving
and especially now
target.
with,
It's actually hard, right? To your point, you have to be actionable and to release the purse strings and take the first steps.
And also you have to we're CoastFI, but say we have, an extra $1,200 a month from our income, and we're keeping our expenses low. There's still this should we save that extra money? Should we save it? What happens to our FI number, right? And so there's that constant battle within us all the time about, well, do we want to invest that money into more trips with the kids, or more extracurricular activities for us, or more date nights, or do we want to save that money? So it's a little bit of a back and forth all of the time, because we're just so programmed to save as much as we can.
I think it's interesting too, because as somebody who is a frugalite, I think that frugalites are naturally drawn to the free spirits, right? Because it does, maybe unconsciously or subconsciously.
I have a Yana.
Yeah, you have a Yana.
Don't worry, man.
But it's what we need, right? It's what we need, and we don't recognize it because
Y'all need to relax.
when they're splurging, it's like, oh, this feels really good, And so having someone like that in your life is helpful, but yeah, exactly. To Jake's point, though, I would choose being a frugalite over being a free spirit for me, because I think it is easier to loosen the purse strings than it is to cut back. And I think that is a harder thing to do. And I think that was a point that we had to try and figure out a good balance between both of us, because what you went through was, I thought, really impressive, because I didn't spend anything, or I was really anal about it. And you're like, okay, I'll concede to these points. But then over time, we've kind of just found a good rhythm, which has been nice. Yeah, I think Jake has probably got the easier road than maybe, whoever he ends up finding.
It feels more first world problem to be like, oh, you need help spending more money. I can do that for you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, just find anybody on the street, they'll help you out. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, versus the tightening the belt is, I think, a little bit more painful process. Allowing yourself to enjoy that freedom and spend a little bit is easier in a sense, but probably not easier for people that have spent 30 years being ultra frugal. And the one thing that I think you were dancing around that I like as a strategy is actually setting up some processes or tactics to spend money. It feels really counterintuitive, but I'm guessing your budget allows you to spend more money. It gives you the mental freedom to spend more money, because I don't know if it's like this with you, Matt, but whenever I know I have $200 a month for a date night and I'm nearing the end of the month, I'm like, well, I need to go and spend that money. There are a couple of line items in my budget that I'm like, these I need to actively work to spend, while others, like, if I don't spend as much on utilities or gas or groceries, that's totally cool with me. Like, I'm cool, like, going under budget on those. But I want to actively try to spend money on food with friends or date night with Gabby or personal development. Like, there are a couple of categories that I have kind of separately that I'm like, I want to make sure I'm actually hitting whatever I set as my target or my budget line item for the year.
It's about investing in a different way. And when I started explaining it to Matt in that way, I think it helped him have this sort of aha moment. You know, we do need to be investing in our relationship outside of the home. We do need to be investing in our health. We do need to be investing in our time with the kids and our ability to travel and see the world. Like, those are sound investments also in our life. Why are we even investing in these long-term investments for our financial future? We're doing that so we can have a good life, right? We need to also make sure that we're investing in the other areas to make sure that we're having a good life.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because it's a lot easier for me to concede $150 for a gym membership or something, or an exercise equipment or something, than it is to put in the budget, $100 for beer. I don't do that stuff. I invest in the things that are healthy where I can. And if there's a, splurge option for going out to eat, we invest in that as a collective. We enjoy that. It's conscientious. Yeah. So we try to support the healthy habits. Anybody you talk to is going to say, hey, you should invest in yourself and your health and your personal growth. So we actually do that. We actually put money in a pot to do that. And a good friend of ours, actually, they have a first world problem where they've collected too much money. And so what they've done is they create a must spend by end of the year.
You have to donate it to a fund that he doesn't align with.
Exactly.
Right?
So he donates it, like, so they collectively, each one of them has this, but they have to pick something that they want to do and spend it. If they don't spend it, then the money left over in that bucket, they have to put to some sort of political thing or foundation that they don't agree with.
They don't like. Like, I think one of the examples was he said that he didn't like golf or something. Like, he doesn't enjoy golf. Maybe his workaround was to donate the money to like a golf foundation or something. So I don't know. I just thought that was so funny.
How bad is that though? That we've built up this such aversion to spending that we have to put that carrot on the stick for us. But it works for them. And honestly, like, they do some really amazing trips because they have to spend it. So anytime anything throughout the year comes up, they're like, well, I already have the funds just for this crazy thing that we're going to do on a whim. And so it's allowed them to be much more adventurous, which is super cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Jake, advice for you and for many others that are probably in the same boat. First of all, let's validate that this is normal. This has got to be a growing process as you kind of downshift from the hardcore saving and investing and moving into your kind of post-FI journey. So give yourself a little bit of grace and be kind to yourself that this is not easy after you've been programmed for probably decades to be hyper frugal. And second is potentially set up some systems where you do need to spend money. It could be earmarking money for fun things to do like travel or date nights or food with friends, etc. And potentially put a reward or a carrot at the very end where maybe you have to do something that you don't want to do. Donate money to a cause that is so out of line with you if you don't spend that money by the end of the year.
Good tips.
All right, guys, we're going to move on to the second question. But before we do that, I have a quick segment in here. And I got this inspiration from your guys' show. And I'm adding in a segment on this called Fun Fi Facts.
This is going to be good then. What do you got?
Is it going to make us cry a little bit?
So I binged the entire CoastFI catalog or CoastFI Couple catalog, and sporadically throughout, you guys share these fun Fi facts. I'm going to air quote fun because it didn't always seem to be too fun. So I tried to find some actual fun Fi facts here and share them with you. All right. So this one is actually something I learned from Chad Carson a couple of episodes whenever I interviewed him. And he said that Benjamin Franklin was an early Fi enthusiast. In the 1700s, he retired from printing at the age of 42 after achieving what is now called Fat Fi, living off his rental income, royalties, and investments. He even used part of his fortune to set up a 200-year charitable trust. So pretty
Wow.
cool that Benjamin Franklin was out doing the 5 things before it was even popular.
Well, that is a fun 5 fact. I like that one. Okay. All right, good. Someone to follow to.
So we're going to move on to the second community question, which I got from Katie. My partner and I are aligned on the big picture, but the day-to-day, we sometimes disagree about spending and saving. Have you ever faced this? What strategies have worked to stay on the same page without constant arguments? So I'm going to throw this one over to you. I'd love to hear some early or some initial thoughts, and then I have a couple of follow-ups on this that I learned through researching you guys.
In the beginning, when we first got married and we merged all of our finances, obviously, Matt was the frugalite and I was much more of the free spirit. And I didn't have the tenets of financial independence and learning about all that. So it took us several years to get to a point where we were more in tune with what we needed as a household, what we needed to accomplish as a household. So those first 3 years, we were never one to argue and get super upset at the dinner table over a budget, but we wanted different things. We valued different things. We prioritized different things, not the big picture things, like the smaller things, like how much we were going to spend at the grocery store this month, or how much we were going to put towards clothing for us and the kids or what have you. And, how much our savings rate needed to be. I thought that we had a really crazy high savings rate at the time, and Matt would say this thing. He would say, it's just a numbers game. It's just a numbers game. It's just a math game. And it just pissed me off every time he would say that. And then we would run the numbers and he would be right. And it took a while for me to recognize that this path, although it was hard, it was worth it. And before I got to that point, I think the thing that we both fell back on every time that we were having a budget meeting, even when it was frustrating, even when money was tight, was that we were doing it together. And that even if we weren't sure what the shared common goals were yet, or were going to be, because we were still sort of figuring that out, we knew that it was going to be a shared common goal. So we tried as much as we could not to make it an argument or pointing fingers or anything like that. And I think just that alone being the foundation of how we communicated around money helped us trust each other and be on the same page and trust that we could disagree or have an ongoing disagreement about money, but it wasn't an argument. It wasn't a conflict.
To me add to that, I was chasing the FIRE goal well before we were married. And so I kind of came to this relationship with a lot of feet in my ground. I'm standing my ground on these particular tenets. I need to have a high savings rate. I need to be frugal. It took us some time to realize that although that is a great goal and something that I think that everybody should be doing, you can't really enjoy your life if you don't also take into account someone else's perspective and the other needs that your partner or spouse have are just as important. And so we did kind of come together early and recognize that this was important. Yana bought us the Financial Peace University course with Dave Ramsey as an engagement gift. I thought that was super
idea.
generous and kind, because it showed me, like, obviously I knew a lot of those tenets. I read like all of his books when I was younger, but to see that she, goes out on this branch to learn kind of the basics showed me that she was really in this. And so maybe to answer the question, it goes both ways. You have to be able to give to be able to also receive. And so if you prioritize their desires and wants and really prioritize it, like really put it on paper and say, you know what? Yes, I promised that we were going to do dance classes. We're going to do them. And here's that thing. So that way the person feels loved and received, and you can kind of build, it's a give and take, because you can fight it all you want and say, you know what? No, we're not, you can't go out to, travel with your friends. It's not going to happen. And if you just keep saying no the whole time, well, eventually they're going to resent you. And then the opposite will happen. Eventually they'll resent you so much that, they're going to sneaky spend or something. And that didn't happen with us, luckily, but we talk to people that this happens, and you're eventually going to do what you want to do if you don't feel like someone's on your side. And so you have to find a way to come at it kind of open-handed and say, you know what, this is very important to me. I recognize what's important to you. Let's find a way to come together. And if that pushes your FI goal back a couple of years, but that gives you decades worth of pleasure and happiness and contentment together, well, that's worth it. And that's what happened with us. Like, yes, there was burnout involved, and yes, I felt like I hit a wall, but thank God for you and being able to see that, because it really changed my life, and it would have been so much less colorful 10 years from now when we did hit 5. We didn't prioritize some of the things that you wanted, because some of the things that you want to do, I didn't know I really enjoy until I try them, and so that's important.
Yeah, Gabby's really good about that with me too, about like introducing me to things that I'm like, I probably would have never said yes to, just mostly because of the obstacle or boundary around money. And she's like, I'm just going to buy it, and it's got to be on my credit card, and that is okay. Like you can kind of see all of our money as one anyway, but she's just like, she knows, kind of like Yana was saying, when you won't spend money on yourself.
Yeah.
She knows there are a couple of like things that I probably will be hesitant to spend money on. She'll just go ahead and just like buy it herself. And like, if I split it with her later on, whatever, like if not, that's fine. And like there are other areas where I always pay, and she's like, that's cool with me.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, if you really think of it from an objective perspective, that's a very sweet and kind, generous thing that she's doing for you. It sometimes came across off as like, well, that's really nice, but I wouldn't have spent money on that. But if you recognize that it's a gift and that you're on the same page and you can talk about it, that's a great thing. We're going to go to a magic show this weekend. I wouldn't have spent a couple $100 to see a magic show, but you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to enjoy it because we have a bucket for it. Yeah.
Like, really? What do you think about going to this? Because it goes in this magic show, and he was like, okay.
Yeah. Like if I said no, then why would I say no?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to make those concessions. I'm going to have a great time. I know it. I can get giddy now that I said yes, but at the time I was like, no, the first version is absolutely not. Save the couple $100, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to do, and it's a good memory to make. And that's what life is going to be about when we look back for the next 10 years.
And I think over the course of our relationship, we've been married for 10 years now. It took time peeling back the wallpaper on each other and on ourselves to have a better understanding of what our money habits were, and have a better understanding of what our money traumas were, what our money triggers were, right? And to not be triggered by each other. Recognize that maybe we think about money slightly differently, but we're constantly working to be on the same page. It takes time. It's not something that's just one conversation. It's a series of conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess maybe to really answer her question, it's just prioritizing both of you.
Yes.
And putting on a paper, actually promising and doing it and carrying, like follow through is really important. And then as long as you guys can agree on that piece of paper, well, then everything's okay. The expectations are set and you're living by that, and that's fine.
With Gabby and I, knowing that we're both on the same team has really helped. Like neither one of us are trying to maliciously do anything to upset the other person. Right. And there are a lot of times where I felt like it was a frivolous spend, but she had the intention on trying to create a really good memory dividend for us. And knowing, immediately thinking like, oh my gosh, you're just wasting money, would put me in a very defensive and off-putting, maybe even conflictive stance. But knowing like, oh, she spent that money, I probably wouldn't have spent that, or I probably would have looked for a coupon, or I probably would have like waited until it went on sale. But why did she do that? And then like kind of taking a step back and being like, because we haven't had a date night in 3 months, and she wants us to have a really amazing time. And she went ahead and planned this. Like, Justin, it's okay. Yeah. Like you got plenty of money right now. Like a couple $100 right now is not going to make or break it. And if you reframe the stance right now and just go in and have the best time ever at that magic show, like you're gonna be on the same page. Like you're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, what we've done is really put money into buckets, right? So we use Cube Money. Justin, you know this, and so Cube Money is a tool that helps us prioritize all of those items and automatically puts a couple $100 or whatever it is into each category. So when something happens, let's say I've got a trip with friends that comes up, right? If there's money in that bucket, I can spend it guilt-free, and we're all aligned on that. So it's just living by the budget. So when I'm going to use an example one last time, because okay, so there was one time like earlier on in our relationship where Yana came home with this beautiful dress, and my initial gut reaction was
money for that.
Like, oh, it's a beautiful dress, but like, where do we get the money for this dress? Versus now, when she comes home with the dress, I can celebrate. I'm right there with you, because we know that we've collectively come together and say, hey, we have a budget for clothes, and we have a budget for these nice things that we want to get each other. And like that has made my life so much better. I love it when she comes home with new dresses, because all that means is that she's trying to look nice for a date that we go on together later on in the month. I'm like, that's that's a win-win-win, So
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, it is. It's a good thing.
You're like,
yeah.
she's looking sexy. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So wait, let me ask mechanically how this works then. So Cube Money, for anyone that doesn't know the software platform, it's essentially the digitalized cash envelope system.
Yes.
So instead of, you get the benefit of the cash envelope system without having to like withdraw money and put that money in individual envelopes and maybe lose it or, not get any interest on it. Cube Money is doing amazing things out there in the community for people that kind of budgeting system works for them, but they just hate the manual or the physical piece to it.
Yes.
If, let's say, Yana is out and you guys have $200 in your clothes, but this dress costs $250, I know mechanically in Cube, you can transfer $50 from one cube to the closed cube. But do you guys text each other or have the conversation, or how does that work if
Usually,
you got to go over?
We have a couple buffer cubes too. We have one that's called Buffer the Vampire Cube. I got to name that one.
Yeah.
And so we put a couple $100 in that every month, and it's more so of like an extra sinking slush fund for like one of our kids was invited to a birthday party and we didn't budget a third birthday present for another birthday party. So things like that, or maybe this bill was a little bit more than we expected, so we've got overflow sort of a thing. So we purposely did that because I love Cube Money. I love that all of our money is in buckets, but I also know how stringent Matt can be about line items and things when we build a budget, just from our history living on an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so early on, we created this buffer cube to help soften some of those line items that could be in flux, because I didn't have to constantly feel like, okay, we only have $40 this month for clothes, or we only have $600 this month for groceries, or whatever it is. If something goes out of budget, I don't want to have to be constantly worried that we're over the budget. I don't want to live that way. That feels like a scarcity mindset. So we've created some of these, slush categories that we can pull from. And honestly too, like, if I'm at the store and I want to buy a new pair of shoes or dress and it's $40 over what we have in our clothing cube, I've got 16 other cubes that are just sinking funds for random things. Like I have a skincare cube. I have a cube for my cat. So I might pull things from, it's just an idea of where I want to be spending money when I'm out in the world and the wild. But it's in flux too, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's fluid. What I really like about it is that it's a lump sum transfer. Yeah, you can pull money from any of these cubes. We got like 30 cubes, just things that we are intentional about. We put money in each of these cubes because we know we're going to use it. But we never go above what's in those cubes, what that lump sum transfer to cube is. And so for me, trying to manage a budget, or for us looking at the annualized, progress of our budget, like it's constant. Like we have not overspent, flat hard stop. And it means that we have to have these conversations. If there's a couple $100, opportunity that comes up throughout the month, we're like, okay, well, we'll pull from this cube and that cube and we'll be okay until the cube's refresh 2 weeks from now or something. Like we just have those conversations, and it's kept us really consistent on our spending. And so that way we can afford to do things like CoastFI and not have to worry about overspending.
It's a proactive approach to the budget. And, we have a lump sum that gets sent over to the Cube system, which is our expenses for the month, basically our spend. And it's fluid. It could change, but we know that that we're not going to go over budget. And we don't always have to have this conversation about what was overspent here, what was overspent there.
No, we used to do budget date nights once a month, Justin, for years, right? We haven't had to do that. Like we maybe touch base, I don't know, once a quarter or something, because we're living our lives from it, which is really super easy. And so because it's automated and it's the only way that we've found to set it and forget it, money just hasn't been an obstacle for us. Like we just live and are content, and we're frugal still. Like we're not living lavishly, but we're content. So
yeah, Yana, wasn't Cube like what you got inspired? What inspired you to get into personal finance? Really,
it totally made me a money nerd. I mean, Matt and I think I was a money nerd before I knew that I was a money nerd, because I'd done financial peace university early on in our before we were married. And we were always really consistent about budgeting. Even when I didn't want to budget, I still prioritized it because I knew that it was important. But I never enjoyed it. I never enjoyed budgeting. But Cube Money completely shifted my relationship with how I was spending our money and our budget and our expenses, because we got to earmark things on the front side. I had complete control proactively on our spend. And so if I do make a decision to spend money on clothes and pull that money from groceries or some other cube, I do that before I swipe my card, and it automatically in real time updates the budget. And so I know exactly what that opportunity cost is before I make that decision. And I don't have to go back at the end of the month and account for it with Matt all of the time. Some of the big things we will, like if there's like $100 or $150, usually around $150 is where we're like, hey, by the way, I spent a little extra here, or this thing costs more than I expected or whatever. But when it comes to $30 here, $40 there, it's not this big deal. It's not something that we have to go through and look at every single line item. And he's like,
No.
you spent $20 at Taco Bell on a Tuesday afternoon. Like, I don't have to, like that was a secret. So it makes me feel like I have more independence, and I really got to enjoy the way that we were budgeting and then also building our wealth with these new tools. So it totally made me a money nerd.
We could talk all day about Cubitis. Like, I think we have an episode that's like an hour and a half long. Just about like all the ways we use it, because it really has just.
I want other people to use it because it's so
Me too.
great.
Yeah. Well, it's like a really interesting tactic for both of you, because like Yana, the free spirit, feels like she has a lot of flexibility and autonomy by using the tool. But at the same token, Matt, someone who needs the structure, the rigidness, the plan, has that. And if the plan is shifted, it's all digitized, and he kind of understands why and how it got shifted there. It's not this ongoing conversation that you guys have to have, or at the end of the month you reconcile bank accounts and you're like, oh shoot, like I spent way more than I thought I did. Like you set the plan at the beginning, you have some modifications that go along the way, but Matt, I'm guessing you feel like you're in control. You have some sense of control around it too.
Yeah, it's been really, really great, because it just takes the the concern and the anxiety and just chucks it out the window, because we're on the same page. We were even before we found Cube. Like, we've been using Cube for 5 years now.
I like that both Cube Money and CoastFI have given you guys the tools to really not retroactively think about money, but proactively think about it, or really like romanticize about it. Like, what can our life be? And how does money support that, which is really cool. So Katie, getting back to your question, I think some suggestions for you. I love that you're already aligned on the big picture. I think it is way easier to deal with some of the day-to-day issues than it would be to be misaligned on the big picture. And it sounds like from a day-to-day perspective, you need to identify like what might be causing that. And two opposites, although not entirely opposites, but Matt and Yana solved what is the need for control and structure and freedom and flexibility by finding a tool that allowed them to access both of that. So it might be worth kind of taking a step back and recognizing what is causing that issue. Is there a tool, a tactic, a strategy that can help with that? And once again, this will all work out. You'll figure out a way through this if you just remind yourself that at the end of the day, you guys are both on the same team. You guys are both trying to support each other. Neither one of you are trying to maliciously attack the other person or destroy the other person's finances. So I appreciate the question, Katie. All right. Before we get to our last question, I got one more fun fact for us. This is another history one too. This one's about the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers reached financial independence before inventing the airplane. Before aviation history, the Wright brothers built a successful bicycle business, which generated enough money for them to fund their flying experiments without relying on outside investors. So they basically side hustled their way to financial independence before launching. Wow. And then in parentheses, I have a joke there, literally.
Wow. What?
So let's get the last question out of the way here. This one I'm excited to hear your guys' answer about. And this one's from Abby. And this one is related to kids. And Abby mentioned that we're working towards FIRE and sometimes worry that my focus on saving and optimizing might rub off in a negative way on my kids, like making them feel anxious about money too early. How do you handle that balance in your family? I want my kids to be financially responsible, but I don't want to pass along the same scarcity mindset that my parents gave to me. Kind of taking a step back on that too. Matt, did you have some scarcity mindset that came from your family? And I guess if so, how does that impact how you're parenting your kids?
I think it's important to recognize that no matter what we do, we're going to be leaving some sort of imprint on our kids, both good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what you do, you might think you're doing something really good and healthy, but it might come back to bite you, years later. And that's just, unfortunately, it just is what it is. So the best thing that I would probably suggest to the reader is do the best you can. Don't beat yourself up if it's not perfect. For me, yeah, I did. I didn't realize this until much later, but I was carrying a lot of money trauma from my parents, and they went through, some difficult, time with money. And my mom was working night shifts at the hospital. My dad was out of the job, and it caused this kind of stress in the household. That's kind of what set me, I think, on my path, is I knew money was important. I needed to save as much as I could. And that's what I was doing. But that in turn, for my oldest child, like, they felt the brunt of that, I feel, because I didn't take them on very many trips. We didn't go to Disney World and all that stuff. And although I thought I was doing the right thing, I in turn could be leaving that trail for them. And so it wasn't until, maybe a couple of years ago that I realized that. And I was like, oh, shoot, I took it too far to the extreme on the other way. And so dialing that back is important. And I think prioritizing, again, what you think is important for your family, right? If it's going to be kids camps, right? Like, one thing that I did to try and get myself out of this scarcity mindset with my kids is I signed up for fencing with my daughter. And so, like, we did fencing together for a whole year or something. And that was super fun. Like, us together battling it out was cool, because that was totally something that they were into. And, we're both a little bit competitive. And so that was fun. And so that was a way for me to show up and show that I was investing with them. And it's different than just throwing money at it. You want to be involved and let them know that it's okay.
We talk openly about it, but I think that we do a really conscientious job of making sure that we're speaking positively about money and our budget and those kinds of things. So, for example, if our youngest and I say we're at the store and he sees a toy that he wants, I try really hard not to say no or we don't have the money. I say, not right now. I'll do something like, I'll take a picture of it. Be like, oh, we can put this on your Christmas list, or we can put this on your birthday list. So it's not a no, it's a not right now. And there have been times where I've caught myself saying, well, we don't have it in the budget right now, or we haven't budgeted for this. And whether it's our 16-year-old or our 9-year-old. And honestly, I think it's really healthy to say, hey, Daddy and I have saved $500 this month for extracurriculars for both of you guys. And these are the things that we've got going on. And this is how much it costs. It is just math, and it's not about how I feel about it. It's not about how they feel about it. Obviously, we want to have that conversation about what they prioritize and what they find to be important within those categories, right? Like, okay, if you don't want to do golf anymore and you want to do swimming instead, totally fine.
Yeah.
Let's make that shift. But it's much more of a collaborative conversation that we're having with our kids around money, which I think is really important. And also teaching them to be responsible for their own money bag.
Mm-hmm.
We make sure that both of our kids have opportunities to earn money from us. So we don't just give them money. They can earn commission in different ways, whether it's good grades or yard work or things like that. We make sure that they are bucketing them in a spending category, a saving category, and a donation category. And so when my 9-year-old comes in panic-stricken because the ice cream truck is coming down the street.
I hate that ice cream truck.
We're not going to name names.
Yeah, okay, right.
When my 9-year-old comes in panic-stricken over the ice cream truck and he needs to buy an ice cream cone and all the other kids are waving their $5 bills, I say, yeah, you can go get your ice cream, go get your wallet. Yes, Go ahead, go get your wallet. Well, I don't know where my wallet is, or I don't have enough money, but sorry, man. Sorry about it. We do have ice cream in the freezer. So if you want if you want an ice cream pop, go ahead and get one. We already have one for free. And I also had this really interesting conversation with my 9-year-old because, he would the highs are high with him. He gets all out of whack whenever he hears his ice cream truck. He got 30 seconds to flag it down. One time he was really upset because he didn't catch it in time or he didn't have the money. And I said, hey, how much was that ice cream cone last time? Well, $4 something. And I was like, you know what? I bet we can buy 3 times as much ice cream from the grocery store with $4.50. So the next time we went, or maybe it was $5, the next time we went to the grocery store, which was, I think, later that day because we wanted the memory to stay.
We wanted to reinforce it.
We took a $5 bill and we said, let's see what's the most amount of ice cream that we can buy with this $5 bill. And we ended up getting like a big tub of like the
Yeah.
grocery store brand mint chocolate chip. And it completely changed his perspective about the ice cream truck. And so now when the ice cream truck comes, you know, he'll come in and be like, can I get an ice cream cone? And be like, do you have money? And he's like, no. And then I'll hear him say to his friends, like, don't worry, guys, that ice cream is too expensive. We have ice cream here, but now he's giving out ice cream to all of the neighborhood.
Yeah. So
I was about to say.
Yeah, we're the ice cream. But even that, like that's a lesson. That's a lesson. I think I love that story. But to get back to the question that this person asked, we forget that money is a game.
Yes.
And it's a game for adults, and it should be a game for kids.
We don't
too.
forget, but
Yeah, like we make it a game.
Yes.
It can be not fun when you're losing the game, but once you figure it out, you can start winning a little bit with money. And don't forget, like, teach kids that money is a game.
Yes.
You know, one of the biggest things that I think I'm trying to show our kids is, you know, when we were growing up, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do when I was growing up. Like, I had no idea. And you're trying to chase this elusive paycheck because you're trying to build this lifestyle. But what we in the FI community have figured out is that money is a game. It's a numbers game. And all you need, especially when you're like a teenager, is just a high savings rate. Yeah. You know, if you start with like a 20% savings rate and work your way up to 30% by the time you're in your 30s, you're probably already FI by the time you're 30.
Yeah.
You could do anything as long as you have that kind of savings rate. Our oldest is really into art, and I'm pushing them that direction. Like, go chase an art school, do whatever you want to do. Make sure you keep that high savings rate, and then we'll play these games with them. And so it is supposed to be a teaching moment. It's not supposed to be this, you know, give them everything so they don't feel trauma. I would actually contest that you're going to get trauma both ways, like both sides of that dial. We all, you know or at least have read about these rich, snobby kids who get whatever they want. Well, that's obviously not what you're trying to build either, right? You want to establish some sort of, not a scarcity mindset, but a delayed gratification mindset. And then that is worth the interest that you're going to be accruing, whether it's financial or not. And so, yeah, again, it's a game. Make it a game.
I think this question's really hard because there's never one right path.
No.
Like, parenting is such a spectrum.
Yes.
We
have two very different children, and they will need two very different kinds of guidance, which we are quickly figuring out. It's another moving target a little bit. And I think being really clear, either with yourself or with your partner, if you have one, on how you want, like what you want to teach your kids and how you want to teach them. And if that has to shift, fine. And being consistent, I think are probably the biggest tenets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I also know that, I think even with the ice cream thing, we had $5 that he was going to spend his ice cream with. I think it was like $5.50 or something. I gave him the 50 cents. Like, he doesn't know that, but like, it's okay to be a little bit lenient. You're only trying to reinforce a healthy lesson.
Right.
Yeah. What's the win?
Lesson here?
Yeah.
Well, Matt, Yana, this was such a pleasure having you guys on the show. Thanks for playing along and answering some community questions here.
Loved it.
Where can people find you guys online? You got this amazing podcast, which, once again, I binged the whole catalog. Can you share a little bit about that and where people can find that?
Yeah. Well, we're CoastFI Couple, so you can find us on CoastFI Couple, CoastFICouple.com, or on any of your podcast streaming platforms. We're also on YouTube. Yeah.
And then one final question for you guys. If you could go back and do one thing differently earlier in your FI journey, what would you do and why?
The first thing I would do would be to invest more money in our brokerage account, because the bridge account, we were sort of ignoring that as a stepping stone to financial peace, and sort of had to scramble to make it up later.
We were maxing out all the retirement vehicles first. Yeah.
And so that was a learning lesson. And then the second thing would be to incorporate a better work-life balance earlier on, because I think we were both just so head down dedicated and burnt out that there was several years there where we just weren't enjoying our journey. And that is really the whole point. And I know it's really easy to say that, and it's easy to hear that from someone else, but it's so important to make those changes in your life so that way you feel excited and happy and fulfilled.
Yeah.
Fire was our one and only goal for such a long time, and we weren't looking around us and being grateful for what we already had. So it's really important to have some gratitude and stop and smell the roses a little bit. It's important.
It's well said. It's well said.
I think that's exactly probably the stance I took as well. I mean, I talk about on our show that I burned out so hard, and I'm still feeling some of those ramifications. And so I think just recognizing that maybe a raise or a promotion you don't need to take that all the time. If it's going to add, X number of levels of stress on you, feel free to job hop. I didn't get that memo until much later on in my career. And I would have saved a lot of headache if I just looked for something else, and although when you're young, chasing a high paycheck and a dollar amount, I think is valuable because it gets us to this point of realizing that, okay, we're comfortable, or we can be. There's a balancing act there. And it's okay to try something that you think you might enjoy, even if it pays a little bit less. Just see where that goes. I totally ignored that my entire career until I left my job. And so, now I'm realizing, there's other things out there that I could do. I wish I had tried this a lot earlier or something. So,
and don't forget that you can retire often too. The money that you're saving and investing right now does not have to be just earmarked for your 65-plus-year-old self. Yeah. And if you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed and you're 31 and you just need to take a year off, take the year off. Like the money that you're saving for your future self doesn't have to be your future self decades and decades from now. It can be your future self tomorrow. And I think we forget about that sometimes. And why do all this hard work, saving and investing, if you don't deploy at the moments that would make the biggest difference for you? So I think that's great. Awesome. And if you do check out CoastFI Couple, I recommend starting with episode 6. That was Matt's burnout journey. That was probably my favorite episode in the whole catalog so far. It was super powerful and impactful. And I thought like it gave a pretty good base to like who you are and where you were coming from.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. It was an emotional episode for us to record. So
it was. Yeah. You were tight the whole time talking, which I know was probably tough for you to share and be that vulnerable, but it was really good for us to hear in the FI community.
Thank you.
Once again, this is Matt and Yana from CoastFI Couple. You can check them out on any podcast player at coastficouple.com. Matt, Yana, thanks again for joining me on the show.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, listeners, too.